Good morning, everyone. Hello, London. My name's Egan. I'm from Rent More Weeks, and I'm also co-founder of Vacation Soup, which I'll tell you a little bit about later on today. Here today, in some ways, follow on quite nicely with what Simon said, and we're looking at the future of vacation rental marketing. We'll also have a look at the present and the past. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I come to stand here and what I'm going to talk to you about by starting with a couple of stories. And in fact, this session is really about stories and stories about stories and stories within stories. Christmas Eve 2012, I was running Rent More Weeks, which is an online marketing magazine for vacation rentals. And I'd been out Christmas shopping and was starting to think about what I would write for the 1st of January with the predictions for 2013. And I was walking along and this thought came into my head where I actually stopped walking, felt my jaw drop open and actually dropped my Christmas shopping, which would have been a bit better if it was raining. And the thought that came into my head was that I'd been in the business for 8 years, 9 years, and every single thing that I had done up until that point was about the property or about what the owner thought I should be doing with the property. And I saw this pie chart in front of me, and the property, this is the whole vacation. The property is actually only quite a small chunk of that experience. And in fact, if you're staying in a city centre, you are literally only sleeping at the accommodation. So if you only market about the accommodation, you're actually marketing to people that are asleep in a sort of sideways thought. So I picked my shopping up and went home, and I wrote a story about that. And like all great stories, it starts with once upon a time, a modern fairy tale. So once upon a time, there were two identical rentals, rental past and rental future. And they stood in the clearing in a forest. And people used to visit the forest, and some would work their way through the forest and come to the rentals. The thing was that the forest is controlled by a couple of really big giants. There's a search giant, and there are now listing site giants. So the owner of rental past, he did what nearly all owners do, is he put up a signpost to rental past. Took some photographs of his property, wrote a description and a catchy headline, listed his amenities, collated his guest reviews, and put that information up on a number of listing sites. Maybe he built a Facebook page where he shared photographs of his property. This is what over 95% of people do in this business. The thing is that once you've done that, the giant, and in particular the search giant, doesn't really pay you any attention because he's too busy off looking at fresh things that are going on the web. If you've just dumped your information somewhere, he doesn't come back once he's read it. So you get less and less traffic, and the owner of rental past gets less and less bookings. So the owner of rental future, she sat down and figured, well, I've got two choices here. I can do what the other 10 million people do to do the same as rental past, or I can try and do something a bit fresh and different. So she decided to put up a lot of signposts. Oh, that's not handy, is it? So she decided to put up a lot of signposts all over the forest. So if she went out and had a meal at a restaurant somewhere in the woods, she'd put up a signpost and write about that and add that to her marketing information. If she heard that the teddy bears were having a picnic somewhere, she'd put up a signpost. If she came across a place in the woods where it was great for kids to play, maybe there was a playground and stuff, she'd put up a signpost. And if she met other people that were in the forest, she would interact with them, give them information, and share the information that they had that she didn't know about. And pretty soon, the search giant started paying her a lot of attention because they perceived her as a local expert. And that brought her more and more traffic. And the people that were coming to the forest, some of those people needed somewhere to stay. And in a lot of cases, they stayed at Rental Future. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, first off, that's not a modern fairy tale. It's a zombie apocalypse that's happening right now. 95% of people are still marketing like Rental Past. So I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey now, where we look at the past, the present, and the future. And some of the smarter ones here can probably tell me who this is. Darwin, exactly. And Darwin had a rental, I don't know if you know. He said, it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive to change. And that couldn't be truer in our industry right now. I read a lot of things where people say, oh, if only we had the old VRBO back. That's gone, that's not happening. You've got to look towards the future, and you have to change. Doing what you're doing, and have been for the last 5, 10, 15 years, that's not going to help you anymore. So if I just have a quick look at what we've been doing in the fairly recent past, 95 to 2016, before the internet we used to, some of you probably remember, we used to put classified adverts in specialist papers, adverts at the back of certain magazines where we were looking for our demographic. We used to use file cards. We'd write or type these out and put them in shop windows or in bulletin board areas, in supermarkets, etc. These two methods and word of mouth were the only ways that we could market prior to the internet. So then we move forward a bit to 95, and we have the birth of VRBO. This is actually a screenshot from 2004, believe it or not. You can see how things have changed in a relatively short period of time. If I click through onto the Florida from the map before, I got here, and then if I click through, I got this. It's pretty compelling stuff. And now I think I'm 4 pages in, I'm actually looking at the listing. And further down on this page, we have here, click here, Treetops Cottage website, more info and information. In fact, this was more forward-thinking than where I'm standing now, in many ways. Those of you this side of the pond will probably recognise Owners Direct. Once again, this is from 2004, pretty similar stuff, and if you jump through, I think this is 3 or 4 pages in, you had 4 photos, that was the maximum limit then. A couple of years later, they upsold you, I think, another 8. But once again, further down the page, I can see I can contact Lucia here with her telephone number, her fax, remember those? Her email and her website. Everything here is geared around getting in contact with the owner. And the reason for that is this. HomeAway's own research from a few years ago showed that 71% of vacation rental shoppers would book online only after speaking to the owner or the manager. You don't see this on their website anymore. But that was their figures. I haven't made that up. It's amazing that they've left that model with that statistic, isn't it? Okay, so moving forward a little bit, 2006 to 2008, the following couple of things happened. Obviously, the web got faster. You can see now there's much higher graphic content, and we had the birth of HomeAway. At pretty much the same time, Airbnb started, and even then they were doing things a little bit differently. They had an iPhone app, which I don't think had occurred to HomeAway at the time. There were collections and Airbnb TV, etc. So that even from day one, they were being quite different. So the innovation from the birth of the web there to much more recent times, in fact, even right up until now, you could say, it's been first Google Maps. Don't know how many of you here, but I used to have to photograph maps and then place little gift pins on them to show where the airport was in relation to the villa, the golf course, etc. Online reviews. I used to photograph my guest books. I used to transcribe the best of the reviews. But now, obviously, online reviews is something that all of us have every day. Everyone's favourite, online booking. Maybe even direct booking, instant booking. The sharing economy, well, I think it was more of a catchphrase than anything. Even Airbnb don't use that term anymore, I don't think. And social media. Big changes there, give us lots of opportunities for engagement and the like. Okay, here's probably the biggest change of all. Anybody know what this is? Walled garden, that's right. And in fact, this could be the walled garden of my multi-million-pound property. And the other side of that wall are my guests that are just dying to stay, but don't know if their mum's wheelchair will fit through the front door. This is probably the biggest game changer of all. I'll come on to that later. So 2008, 2014 can probably be summed up in the next slide. Happy days. List it, and they did come. How things have changed. So, while we're still looking at the past, I just want to tell you a story about stories. This is from around 2009. This is Rob Walker. Rob Walker is an author for the New York Times Magazine and some other high-class publications. He's also written some books. But in 2009, Rob decided to try an experiment. He bought 200 items from thrift stores, charity shops, call them what you like, and the average price was $1.25. Basically, he bought crap. And here's some of the crap he bought. Ceramic apple core, ceramic hot dog, ceramic banana, almost fetish stuff. This is the sort of thing he bought, this wonderful, it's an owl pin cushion by all accounts, and he bought it for 50 cents. So he had 200 objects, and what he did was he contacted 200 authors and asked them each to write a fictional story about each of the items that he'd bought. He then put those items with the stories on eBay. Bought this for 50 cents and sold it for $41, just because it had a story attached to it. And when you're coming on more and more to the importance of stories, the whole experiment was called significant objects, even though they were actually quite insignificant. And if you're here, you either own a property or manage properties, and they are far more significant. So imagine if you start telling stories, what you could achieve here. Anyway, he bought these 200 items, cost him $250. Believe it or not, he sold them on eBay with stories for $8,000. So pay a lot of attention to stories. I'll be coming on to that more. So I'm going to talk now about the present. And Darwin also said, I've tried lately to read Shakespeare, but found it so intolerably dull that it nauseated me. I'm going to change this up, and I've tried browsing vacation rental websites and found them so intolerably dull that they nauseated me. They're all the same, every one of them virtually. So what I'd like to ask you now is put your hands up, please, if you think that your marketing efforts are above average. No one, come on, stop being shy. You're all average, are you? Okay, so who here lists with the big listing sites? Hands up. Okay. The thing is, if you list with a big listing site, you are nothing but average. There is no above average with a listing site. They display what you have to offer, when they want to display it, where they want to display it, surrounded by however many other properties they wish to display. It's impossible to be anything but average. By default, when you add your property to a collection of 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1.5 million on HomeAway, or 4.5 million properties on Airbnb, you are average. And average doesn't really hack it anymore in a marketplace with 10 million competing properties. So how do you become average? Well, marketing is no longer about the stuff that you make, or in our case, the stuff that we sell. It's about the stories that you tell. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples from another marketplace, just to show you how marketing has evolved.
So quick as a flash, I turned into a dog, a ruff ruff. But the cat turned into a dragon, so I turned into a fire engine. How's that? and then he turned into a submarine. So I became a submarine-eating kipper. I said a kipper, not a slipper. Thank you very much. But he turned into an anti-kipper ballistic missile. So I turned into a missile cruncher. Crunch, 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 crunch. Just in time to see him change into a very, very big elephant. So do you know what I did then? I turned back into a mouse, and I gave him the fright of his life. Just like that.
Tommy Cooper can't be in. So that's a Lego advert, obviously from the 70s. And what I'm going to show you now is the latest Lego advert.
I don't always want you to help me. Do you know why? I want to figure it out on my own. Even when it doesn't turn out the way I want. I know it's not wrong. Because you taught me how to think. How to dream. I'm about to make something that I know will make you proud.
So you can see from the 1970s way of marketing, it's all about the product. That's all it was, product, 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 just on and on. Nothing else going on at all. But here in 2018, hardly mentions the product. It's more about emotion, sort of some dreaming going on, kid growing up, interacting with the product. Hardly even mentions, it's not until at the very end when the logo comes up that you can actually really know that it's a Lego advert. So marketing has really evolved massively. I can show you lots of other examples like that in the automotive industry and so on, where the old advert showed the product, the new adverts showed the product in use. That's because if all your stories are about products or services, it's not a story, it's a brochure. Going back to what I was saying at the very beginning there, you know, the storytelling or the brochure that you're putting out represents the property and the manager. You need to be putting out stories that are appealing to potential guests. So I'll give you a couple of examples. This is Deborah Sheets. She contacted me. She'd seen some of the websites that I'm making. And my websites are destination-based sites. They're not solely property. And this is Deborah's apartment. It's actually a micro loft. This is the entire extent of the property, literally from wall to wall. Doesn't get any wider than this. And the person that took this photo is sitting on the kitchen unit because it's literally just this square. To the extent this is a Murphy bed, it folds up and you can see down at the bottom there that becomes a dining table. It's tiny. And I have to make a website for this. So I'm going to run out a copy in the first 5 minutes of trying to write something. So I put together a website for Deborah, who is in Victoria, British Columbia. Anybody know anything about Victoria? Anybody been? Okay. So this is the homepage of the website that I've made for her. And you can see I don't mention the property other than a little bit up in the title, because nobody but nobody is ever going to go to British Columbia, and Victoria in particular, because Deborah has a micro loft. It's just not going to happen. Nobody has ever gone on vacation rental. It's worth noting, you know, people go on vacation. We all do a straw poll, you all say you're in the vacation rental business, but nobody goes on vacation rental. So what I do is I identify why people go to a destination. And the main reason people go to British Columbia is for whale watching. The place is steeped in history, as you can see from the architecture, and it's a short walk out of town for fantastic cycling and hiking in some of the cleanest air on the planet. These are the reasons that people are going to this area, and I've focused this website on trying to get traffic from whale watching in Victoria and so on and so on. But just below the fold, I've added this video, and I'm going to play this video in its entirety here, and afterwards I'll tell you why.
I grew up in Toronto.
Montreal.
Portland.
Ontario. The first time I came here was
To visit my little brother.
A music festival.
Our honeymoon.
a tech conference.
And I can still remember coming through the islands on the ferry.
Seeing a castle for the first time.
Seeing his eyes light up when he saw his first whale.
The flowers in bloom at Bouchard Garden.
But it's more than that. It's more than what you see. It's...
It's about the energy.
People are actually friendly when I ask for directions.
We just finished dinner in a world-class restaurant.
And now we're at a buskers festival.
It's about the entire region. Chile.
It's about the adventure!
It's been years since I first came here.
It's my second time.
5th time.
How many times?
But every time you come to Victoria,
We find a new adventure. A new breakfast place.
a new adrenaline ride.
And after a while,
You stop feeling like a tourist.
you can start asking you for directions.
You find yourself
Suggesting places to eat.
Making friends with locals.
Making friends with the locals.
When it's time to leave.
The memories have always been different.
But every time we come back to Victoria,
the feeling's always the same.
So I've shown you that for 3 reasons. First of all, if you didn't know about Victoria, British Columbia before that, you do now. And secondly, you now associate all those happy, smiling people and those activities with Deborah's Microloft. And thirdly, you just spent 3.5 minutes on Deborah's homepage. And that's a massive metric for Google because on-page time, you can't fake that. So you can do all sorts of grey hat, black hat stuff with Google, but you can't make people stay on a crap page. But Google does see how long people spend on pages, and if people spend more time on Deborah's homepage than her competitors, she will go up in the ranking. That video was produced by the local government. It's on YouTube, freely available, and anybody in Victoria could add it to their websites. And I bet you won't find another single one that has. Okay, so this is Steve. Steve's a bit of a character. He's got a number of places in the Adirondacks, although he only rents one of them out. He saw what I was doing with websites and said he would like one. This, believe it or not, was the only place that he was advertising on the web. This is a current website. It does actually bring him a fair amount of traffic, but it's not the prettiest thing, as you can see. So I made a website for Steve. Now, I've never been to the Adirondacks, but it is a stunningly beautiful place. And once again, the same principles apply, although Steve was coming from a place that he wanted a better and better website the longer that we were working together. And in the end, he said he wanted the best website on the planet, but I'm not sure that I can claim that. But once again, people are coming to the Adirondacks for hiking. That's the main reason people come. There's a lot of fishing, there's a lot of water sports. And then below the fold, I've got winter sports. I actually mentioned something about the rental here, below the fold. And there's a ton of wildlife in this location. And I've added a video here as well. I'm just going to play you a few seconds of this video.
There is a house built out of stone, wooden floors, walls, and windowsills.
So you can see in that, I don't know what that was, 30 seconds a minute or whatever, the difference in the message that's coming across from this site to the vibrant city centre goings-on in Victoria. You can see this is big open spaces, landscape, quiet, etc., etc. So while I was making the website, Steve kept saying, don't forget the loons, don't forget the loons. And I didn't know what a loon was. And this is a loon. And I'll tell you now why he was saying that. I'd like you all to close your eyes and keep them closed for this next bit.
Many an occasion I've been camping in the Adirondacks, and one of my favorite periods is right at dusk, when the lake becomes absolutely glass-like. The sun is setting, but you can still see the silhouettes of trees, all these conical spires. Beautiful reflection on the water with the last few bits of sunlight, and then you hear the wail of a loon.
Now, I write web copy for a living. In fact, we've got Andy McNulty here who does it better than me. But I don't know about you, Andy, but I don't know how to get that down in words. You can get so much across with short video that you can bring your website to life with things that you could never explain, no matter how long you've lived in a location. You can show people things to see and do by showing things being done. It's so much more powerful than words. And people don't have time for words. I mean, we all know that when it comes to rental agreements, nobody ever reads them. Okay, so Steve's property, it comes with 4 kayaks, a canoe, a couple of stand-up paddle boards here, and underneath the tree there's quite a big aluminium fishing boat with outboard engine. And I can write about these things, they are mentioned in the copy, but I found this. So we've just gone from selling a cabin to a purveyor of bucket list dreams. If I'd have asked you who would like to stay at Steve's place by just showing a photograph of his house, yeah, maybe some of you would, maybe some of you wouldn't. But who'd like to do that? This is the reason people go to the Adirondacks. The opportunity to see wildlife, water sports, etc., etc. They're not going because Steve owns property. So now Steve's site has, I think it's actually quite a bit over 27 videos now. He's always adding them. There's over an hour of viewable content. And site visitors love this. People are writing to Steve to congratulate him on his website. Now, if people aren't writing to you about your website, then maybe you should start thinking about why they're not. It's because you're average. You have to shine and become above average. This person booked. So, as I said before, this is what Steve had when we started marketing. And he likes fishing, but photography isn't his strong point. So what I did was I went online and looked for some professional photographers that lived in the region. I found 2 fantastic photographers. I wrote to them saying their work was brilliant. Could we use their work on the website? And we would build them a gallery page each, along with their bio and a link back to their site. Now, of course, they said yes, because it's backlinks, if nothing else. It's good exposure, and I told them that I love their work. I mean, you can see here, this is a really lovely photograph. So now this is actually a photograph of the lake where Steve's house is, and this is what it looks like if you view his website. You come across images like this now. This was free, again. There's a bit of an example of one of the gallery pages on his site. We went from some visuals to some of the best visuals. In fact, this is his call to action. Inquire about your Adirondack vacation here. Once again, not showing the house, but showing what it would be like to step in and have a vacation with him. So this was Steve's leading photo. Now, one of the photographers came back and shot his house and drone footage for $150 because he sees him as a bit of a partner now. So this is now Steve's leading photograph. So once again, gone from average, above average. We also reshot the interior photographs, and these have also gone up. Well, maybe they're not above average, but they're certainly not below average. So why do this? Travel brands with highly browsable experiences rank higher in search. And that's, Google's job. Anybody who was there on Monday saw Google, the head of Google Europe give the talk. All Google want to do is serve up content that searchers will be happy with. And you will go up in the ranking if people start spending longer on your site. Okay, so here's analytics from Steve's site since it went live, I think, at the end of June, pretty much. These things take maybe a few weeks to really get indexed properly and so on. But it's been bringing in a steady stream of visitors. I'll come on to these peaks in a minute. So 16,000 visits since June. About a third of people have come back to the site. That's quite a high percentage in this game. Those that have come to the site have spent an average of 5 page views. That's big. There's stuff to see on this site. People that come, stay and have a look round. And the real reason for, the biggest thing here is that isn't a 30% bounce rate. That's a 0.3% bounce rate. I've never seen a website in any market, and I've been making sites for a long time, that is anywhere near that. And that's over this 6 months or so. And these peaks here are Facebook ads. Steve ran a couple of ads, or you can see he ran a few ads. He's targeting people in New York City because that's where most of his guests come from. He's dog friendly, so he's also looking for people that have dogs and like hiking. These adverts are costing around $50 to $75 a time, and they bring in somewhere between 500 and 1,000 visitors each time. And these brought in quite a lot of bookings. So, you know, you don't need an OTA. He doesn't list with any listing sites, actually, other than the one I showed you. There are different ways to drive traffic. So here are a couple of these peaks, and you can see what happens is when you're driving traffic from Facebook, your average duration on site goes down a bit, obviously, because they're more of a rush. Maybe even weren't looking for a rental. But you can still see that they're still looking at 5 pages of this website. And still, in fact, even lower bounce rate. Now you might be thinking, yeah, well, it's all right with these spikes, but the rest of the time looks pretty crap on site visits. But here's a week with no ads, and he's getting 25 to 50 page views a day. And that might not seem a lot, but if you had a shop selling this cabin in a town near it or something, 25 to 50 interested people coming in a day wouldn't be too shabby. So as of the end of February, he'd booked a total of just coming up to $50,000 through this site alone. Now, a few of those bookings were actually repeats, so they weren't all strangers, but you can see that from having no website and then having one for 6-7 months, it's not bad return, 50,000. But there was a downside. He contacted me and said, well, I'm going to be full up. I'm not going to have anything to do. He only does fishing and rentals, that's his life. And he called me and said, what's the point of having a website this good if I can only make 50 or 60 grand a year? So he bought the house next door. He closed this deal on the 20th of November, but he didn't like any of the furniture, so he had a big bonfire and burnt all the furniture, bought new furniture, and that arrived, I think, the second week in December, and he actually added the property to the website the week of Christmas. And this is it, Beach Point. Here it is. So in the first 8 weeks of adding that to the site, it's already got $36,000 worth of bookings from that as well, from a standing start. You can see that, I mean, it's just incredible what can happen when you start being above average. He also contacted me another day, another website booking for Beach Point. This woman was actually looking through the site for 41 minutes. Now, you know, people spend less time on Netflix. Also, another quite a good tip I can give you here is Pure ADK, the video I showed with the big open landscapes there on Steve's homepage. That was made by Pure ADK. And Steve noticed that they got 40,000 or 34,000 followers on Instagram, but Steve's not on Instagram. So what he did was he called them up and said, oh yeah, we like your videos, we've used quite a few of them on our website. Would you like a free weekend at my cottage, my cabin? It was February, they only just left. So it's not like it was going to be fully booked. There was a metre of snow and I think it was -20. But they came and they added this photo to their Instagram feed. Within the first 10 hours it had 1,500 odd likes, and Steve saw a boost almost immediately of about another 200 site visitors. Plus he's now friends with these guys, so if he wants to leverage something else later in the year, I'm sure they'll help him. There's lots of ways to advertise outside of the ways that you have been. So in any business, in order to succeed, all you need to be is better than your competition. That sounds a bit cliched, but it's the truth. And the competition, in all of our cases, is decisively average. So start pumping out stuff that's above average. It's not that difficult when everybody's just doing the same old like Rental Past. Now, just made a site for these two guys, two brothers. What I find is people write to me and say, yeah, well, I've got a city centre place and that destination marketing stuff doesn't work for city centres. And what they're really saying is, well, I'll stick with average. They have no proof that, I mean, you can turn anything around and make it better than average. You know, these two brothers, they own an apartment each, or condo each, at Panama City Beach, and there's, you know, over 5,000 competing properties here. So you can either decide to be just average and do the same as everybody else, or step up your game and get noticed. Now, even this website is, you know, similar again, once again, the people are coming for golf, the beach, and dining, water sports, some shopping, and, you know, in Steve's case, I was showing wildlife, and here we're showing nightlife. Maybe wild nightlife, who knows? But tell people about what's going on. Nobody's interested. Nobody gives a shit about your properties. No one. Only you. Give them what they want. So once again, a video. And even this site, which people would say, oh, well, they're coming for a beach holiday. They don't need to know anymore. That's just ignorance. 17 videos here showing all sorts of things, from a tour around the shopping centre to some attractions and so on. All those things I've shown you there are free, entirely free, like I said. If you can find a video on YouTube and it's got a share button, you're entitled to embed it into your website. So what about the future? Back to the future. Digital Darwinism is the evolution of consumer behaviour, when society and technology evolve faster than your ability to adapt. And walled gardens stop the listing site's ability to adapt. Okay? You can't tell stories without names. Who ever heard of XXX and the Beanstalk at Airbnb.com? Okay, it's not a story. And you can't tell stories about properties. You know, who ever heard of 1980 Sleeps Up to 4? That wouldn't be a very interesting book. But owners are adapting, and managers, because they're being forced to. You know, you're seeing this steady climb in take rates, ridiculous cancellation policies. No details from the guest before booking. If my place is worth $1 million, I'd really like to know who's staying in it. I know that's not a very profitable model for some people out here, but I want to know who's staying in my house. And the vast majority of owners and managers also want that. So my prediction is that owners are coming, managers are coming. You're coming here. And if we zoom back 6 years, you didn't see these conferences, did you? Because everything worked. We listed, we got inquiries and bookings under our terms. So I think owners are definitely coming. But the problem is that the road to listing site independence is long and lonely. In fact, it's probably up the top of that mountain there, somewhere in the distance. So that got us thinking, what if the owners' websites become the channel? At the moment, we have these channel managers. I think she left the room, luckily. All they're doing is diluting your distribution and your offering across everywhere. The more, you're just being more average in more places. Become the channel. You're in complete control of your own websites. And, you know, as you saw before, you know, a sort of rough guide effect on Deborah's website in British Columbia to a sort of more National Geographic offering from Steve in the Adirondacks. So we started giving away websites like the ones that I make. You know, they're completed, they come with a video course, and owners have embraced this method. None of these people are talking about their properties front and centre. All have seen marked increases in traffic and on-time time. They rank higher, they have better conversion rates than property-only sites. And this lady here, Joanna, she wrote to me, she's saying her bookings have gone up 80%, and she's in Orlando. That's one of the most competitive places on the planet. But as soon as she started about what's outside of the rental, her bookings went up immediately. But there's a problem, of course, in that VR owners aren't managers or marketers. And in fact, you know, even professional managers aren't particularly marketers. They're just good at managing properties. So this also got us thinking. So we've written a WordPress plugin that specifically creates great stories for owners. It tells them what to write or suggests what to write about, so it does away with writer's block. It provides copyright-free images to add to the posts, and it optimizes all of the posts and then shares these posts out across a myriad of platforms for exposure. And you can see here that when you start using the plugin, you turn your website into a magazine. It's telling people about what's on, what to see, what to do, and recommendations about where to eat and drink. Because these are the things people actually search for before they look for a property. You want to know, well, I'm going to be able to, there are good restaurants in the area. What can I do with the kids when it's raining? Maybe recommend a good picnic spot. All sorts of things that you can add. Sorry. So that also got us thinking. We were thinking, what if we connect all of these websites together? That would give them all much more power than just being on your own with this lonely road to listings independence. So we've created a network of VR websites, and we are the lonely planet of vacation rentals with Vacation Soup. So if you publish something, the plugin knows where you are. If you happen to have a property in the Bahamas, when you publish to your website, we also syndicate to the Bahamas magazine within our website. And we're feeding in an awful lot of articles on a daily basis already. We're showing stories alongside properties. So this is written by Don. He has a place on Exuma. This one's about beach weddings in Exuma. And next to the post is a link to his property. Below the post is a photo of Don, a short bio about him with more links directly to his website, as you can see. So, to wrap up, the future of vacation rental, in my opinion, will have less and less and less to do with the properties, and more to do with the experiences that people can hope to achieve outside of the property. This is the only way that you can become above average in this market. And in order to be above average, you need to be unique. And as soon as you start telling stories, you are unique. So I'll just wrap up with this guy, Herbert Spencer. He was a friend of Darwin's, also a member of the Royal Society. And he said this: "The wise man must remember that while he is a descendant of the past, he is a parent of the future." He also said, "The great aim of education is knowledge, not action." So I can tell you things like this all day long, but unless you take any action, nothing will change. Okay, thank you very much.